La resurrezione per ogni anima.
Resurrection for every soul. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John, chapter 20, we read the inspiring account of Jesus' resurrection. The first day of the week, cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord. Then the same day, at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus, and stood in their midst, and said unto them, Peace be unto you. The resurrection of Jesus, doubted by many, but affirmed by those who were close to him, was a miraculous event, though one not unique in history. For many great saints of other religions have appeared to their disciples after death. Sometimes their appearances have been as that of Jesus was in flesh and blood form, and not only in vision. Paramahansa Yogananda relates in Autobiography of a Yogi the account of his guru Sri Yukteswar's resurrection after his earthly passing. Miracles of this type are revealed only rarely to the masses, but accounts of them, related by men and women of reputed truthfulness, have inspired many devotees with faith and in the reality of subtler than material states of existence. Resurrection, Yogananda explained, means transformation ultimately from any lower state of being to a higher one. Worldly consciousness cannot imagine such transformation except in terms of perhaps an improvement of the present mess of pottage with the addition of a new flavoring. Divine consciousness, however, is capable of taking the base metal of worldliness and transforming it into the spiritual gold of divine wisdom and love. In keeping with this truth, the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter tells us, Ah, ye who into this ill world are come, fleeting and false, set your faith fast on me, fix heart and thought on me, adore me, bring offerings to me, make me prostrations, make me your supremest joy, and undivided unto my rest your spirits shall be guided. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. So here we are at Easter. For those who have been with us this week, it was a week of ups and downs. If we follow the life of Jesus, last Sunday, the Palm Sunday, we all celebrate his arrival in Jerusalem, and everyone was happy. He was triumphant. Then we have been with his disciples, with Jesus, their master, during the Last Supper, and even before Jesus shared so much about the truth that he has received from his Father God, that it was difficult to understand how they could even remember all these things without having a computer. Isn't it incredible? If you read everything that Jesus has given in that Holy Week, it is a lifetime of truth, of teachings, and especially that evening. And who was present Thursday evening, you have experienced. I don't know how it is for you, but when I know that there's an event in the life of a great avatar, a great spiritual master, if I really want to receive and absorb the truth that he's giving in that moment, I try to put myself into that situation. So Thursday evening, those who were present here were able to wash the feet and experience both sides, the part of Jesus, who with all his love, with all that he could give of consciousness, he washed the feet of his disciples. And that evening, Thursday evening, we have given people the opportunity to be Jesus and to give in that act of love and humility to another person. And then you also have experienced the other side, to be the person that receives from Jesus all that he tries to give in that act of love and humility towards the disciples. The importance of love, of humility, the importance of serving others. And immediately after that, they go to Gethsemane, to the garden, and there Christ reveals a little bit of his humanity, because he prays to his Father. Lord, Father, I know that you can take this cup from me. And he asks if it is possible, but then he says, may your will be done. And the disciples are there. Try to feel yourself present in that moment, visualize that moment. You are the disciple, and try to visualize you're seeing your master suffering. It seems that he's in a state of maybe a little tension. And what happens is that the disciples fall asleep. They fall asleep. How many times when I imagine to be in that situation, I cannot imagine to fall asleep. I would have been awake with Jesus. But also for them it has been a difficult week. They have done so many things, so they fall asleep because they were heavily asleep. And also we, when we want, and how much do we want to be awake and ready with the Master, with God, with Divine Mother? Sometimes we are not. And Jesus has left that. He knew that his disciples were not perfect, but he knew what was going to happen. He knew Judah was coming and he was going to betray him. And if we put ourselves in that situation, it is really, if we really can see the situation with Jesus, the disciples, with Judah who comes with many people, with they are armed and they want to arrest Jesus. And Jesus gives the sign of the kiss, and Jesus knew. And he does not, Judah is his disciple, and Jesus gives Judah the possibility to confront really what he is doing in that moment. So he asks Judah, what are you doing here? So he asks him directly, "Why are you here?" And then he says, "Are you betraying me with a kiss?" And in that moment, Judah has the possibility, like all of us, when we are in a situation where we have the possibility to do something, we want to be careful to what the masters try to show us in that situation, because it was not what Judah expected or the other disciples expected. So we know that Jesus was arrested and he was judged, he was humiliated, beaten, and then taken to the cross. He had to take the cross and he was crucified. And in that week, with all these ups and downs of his disciples and in the life of Jesus, they have been tested, especially in that moment when they understood that Jesus did not want to defend himself from the arrest. He knew that he had something to do. He had a mission. And like in the Garden of Gethsemane, he wanted to do the will of God. It is not always easy to put ourselves in that situation and ask ourselves, what would I have done? But it is important that we try, because like this we can prepare for our moments of a trial, of challenge, of testing. And I wanted to share with you a story that can seem to be very light, confronting with what Jesus had to live. But this is an example that in life we all have these opportunities when we are with God, when we are in the remembrance of God, like the affirmations that we just did. So I'm going to read the story. It's a story about Louise, a poorly dressed lady with a look of defeat on her face. She walked into a grocery store. It's in our times. She approached the owner of the store in a most humble manner and asked if he would let her charge a few groceries. She softly explained that her husband was very ill and unable to work. They had 7 children and they needed food. The grocer scoffed at her and requested that she leave his store at once. Visualizing the family needs, she said, like Jesus on the cross, thinking of the thieves on his left and right, he's thinking of the people who condemned him, and he asks, "Forgive them." So she, visualizing the family needs, said, "Please, sir, I will bring you the money just as soon as I can." The owner told her he could not give her credit since she did not have a charge account at his store. Standing beside the counter was a customer who overheard the conversation between the two. The customer walked forward and told the grocer that he would stand good for whatever she needed for her family. The owner said in a very reluctant voice, "Do you have a grocery list?" "Louise," the lady replied, "Yes, sir." "Okay," he said, put your grocery list on the scales, on the vegetable scale, and whatever your grocery list weighs, I will give you that amount in groceries. Louise hesitated a moment with a bowed head. Then she reached into her purse and took out a piece of paper and scribbled something on it. She then laid the piece of paper on the scale carefully, with her head still bowed. The eyes of the grocer and the customer showed amazement when the scales went down and stayed down. The owner, staring at the scales, turned slowly to the customer and said begrudgingly, "I can't believe it." The customer smiled, and the grocer started putting the groceries on the other side of the scales. The scale did not balance, so he continued to put more and more groceries on them until the scales would hold no more. The owner stood there in utter disgust. Finally, he grabbed a piece of paper from the scales and looked at it with greater amazement. It was not a grocery list. It was a prayer which said, "Dear Lord, you know my needs, and I'm leaving this in your hands." The owner gave her the groceries that he had gathered and stood in stunned silence. Louise thanked him and left the store. The other customer handed a $50 bill to the grocer and said, "It was worth every penny of it. Only God knows how much a prayer weighs." This was his way of saying, "May your will be done, Lord. I will put everything into your hands." It is such a beautiful example that touches our heart. An example of what can happen when we are able, like Jesus, to say in difficult situations of our lives, "May your will be done." Then we come back to this morning of Easter in the life of Jesus. Mary, who arrives at the grave, and the women, they wanted to bathe Jesus' body with herbs. They were already asking themselves, how can we get through the door with this stone in front? But they thought to find a guardian, but there was no one there. They found the grave open, and that is the moment now when we can put ourselves together with Mary and try to feel the body is gone, what has happened, but knowing that the others would have known that she thinks they all need to know that the body is gone. So she tells Peter and John, "Come, you need to see what happened. The body is gone." So the disciples come back and they are reunited in a room, and we know that they had fled, they had run away from the Garden of Gethsemane when they understood that Jesus was not going to defend himself, that he was not going to fight against the Romans. Then they fled, they ran away. So in this moment, they reunite, and let's imagine they wanted to talk, they wanted to decide what needs to happen now that the body, Jesus is gone. Who is going to guide us? We need to act. So they are together in the room. And when Peter and John come back with this news that the body is gone, then we know that in that moment they could start to think, maybe it was right what he said, that he would resurrect after 3 days. Maybe he was right. And when we think of everything that they have suffered, when we think of what was the sadness of Jesus for what was going to happen, and I just want to repeat what I said the other day about the fact that also in the song of Swamiji, in the oratory, Christ lives, I want to repeat that Jesus did not suffer for himself. He suffered because he knew that this love, this infinite love of God, that he was trying to give through the truth that Jesus was teaching, that people were not ready. People could not receive them fully. And that is why our openness is so important to be able to receive. And in that moment, when they were reunited, that was the moment of opening, that they felt they really wanted to take on the mission of Jesus, that he magnetized his presence with them. And what did he say to them? Peace be unto you. After all that has happened, I am always with you. Also when I'm not in the body, even Yogananda said the same thing. When someone would ask him, Master, what will happen when you are gone? And he said, only love can take my place. And that was a great part of the message of Jesus for his disciples and also for us today. And in this resurrection of Jesus, we have the proof that it doesn't matter what happens to us, what will be taken away from us, what will be given us as a test or challenge. If we face this challenge with courage, with faith, like this woman in the grocery store, and we say, I put everything into your hands, Lord. If we live like that and act like that through all our trials and challenges with courage, with faith, with love, then the result will be the resurrection in joy, in the love, in the joy of Christ. Today we celebrate the fact that he has overcome his physical body and he's always with us. Our part is to not avoid challenges and tests, but to face them and to go beyond them, to go beyond what seems to be a terrible situation that can come to help us to get to our freedom. And the title of this today's reading is Resurrection for Every Soul, for all. And that means if we can be victorious, if we can be victorious even after so many challenges in our lives, all the people who are suffering, who are trying to live through a difficult situation, we can help them. We can help them sending light to their consciousness, opening our heart to receive also them the love of God. And we can give that to them. And like that, resurrection will be for all. And it is the preparation of what we are doing in our life, the ceremony of purification that you have done the other day, trying to eliminate from the heart, from the mind, all those things that limit us. We can do the ceremony at home, the purification, or the ceremony of light that we are doing now, and in which we want to open ourselves to receive all that God and Christ want to give us from their light. Our daily meditations, our satsangs, to come together and feel the power of these teachings, of the teaching of love and bliss, of truth. Ultimately, resurrection is really for all. And I want to finish with these words by Swamiji. Swamiji was for us the person that we can see as an example how, with all his also physical difficulties, life challenges, he put his life into service for Master, and he has always tried to be a model for us, to show us how we can overcome our difficult moments. And with these words, he says, again, some of the words from the Bhagavad Gita from today's reading, he says, God is our infinite beloved. He is our one and only true friend. His wish for us is our eternal happiness and freedom. The tests he sends have only one purpose: to help us grow in wisdom. His support was and is with us always, not for our errors, but in spite of them, for we are his own. And then the reading of the Bhagavad Gita: have faith in God, love him above all else, surrender your heart to him, open yourself to him, even and especially in your darkest hours. For he alone can give you the peace for which your soul longs. And then Swamiji finishes with these words: Christ's resurrection symbolized a great inward truth. That person whose love remains firm through all trials finds himself resurrected at last into eternal bliss. So to all of you I wish the bliss and freedom eternal in God.